Hey, what's going on, you guys? And welcome back to another episode with I Trek. Big shout out to everybody that's tapping in, man. You already know I got the wildest, most interesting videos. You already know what to do, man. So let's go ahead and get right into it.
First Matrix movie, they say that they put humans in so that they're basically human batteries and that they can harvest our electricity and energy from our bodies. But originally in the film, it was supposed to be neural processing. It was the studio that changed it to humans are like batteries because they thought that would make more sense to audiences. So really in the canon Matrix timeline, humans are used for their brain power. And that's becoming a real thing now. They're now growing brains for bioprocessing. These small brains are called organoids. And they're basically a bunch of little children's brains that are grown in dishes. They're going to be used for bioprocessing, and this sounds like sci-fi or Black Mirror, but this is 100% happening. You actually are going to soon be able to pay for these little brains to process information for you. And I've been warning people about this for almost a decade that this is coming, and people never believed me. But we know eventually what this becomes. And what about these brains in these petri dishes? What if at some point they start to advance more? Because right now they only live for about 100 days at a time. But what about when they get them good and they live for years? And these brains, these organoids, what if they start to gain consciousness? What if they want to be free? Well, maybe they would keep them busy in some sort of simulated world like a Matrix. And that's why in my Matrix videos, when people ask me what I think, I say there's two likely scenarios. Either Neo is just a simulation and he's not real at all, or he's a brain grown in a dish and this is the reality that he's been fed. And when I said that, everyone thought it sounded like sci-fi, but here we go, it's starting. And to most people that are outside of electronics and computing, they want to know, why would it be advantageous to grow a brain as opposed to using a computer? A computer is just trying to mimic the human brain, just like cameras are trying to mimic our eyes. So going to the source is always the best way to do it. And the fact is that biological computing is much more efficient than any kind of hardware base that we've created so far. So let's look at some numbers real quick. So if you're looking at electricity, if you use ChatGPT, each request takes about 2.9 watt hours. And most people don't just do one prompt on ChatGPT, it's multiple. And then even looking at something like a light bulb, that takes 60 watts of electricity to run continuously. It's the desktop computer that people have in their homes that continuously draws 175 watts. A laptop is around 60 watts, but the human brain, whether you're awake or asleep, it uses about 12 watts. And our brain is not just some desktop running, our brains are supercomputers. And that's why they're starting to grow them. It's horrifying because very soon, we might just implement a matrix around these brains to keep them more passive. And it makes you wonder, is that what our world is? Are we all just brains in a petri dish? Are we also just organoids?
Hey, so the Matrix was predictive programming for real. I always knew the human brain was a supercomputer, but like this takes it to a whole new level. And then extracting data at will, it's called creepy to the 10th power.
This is dry gangrene as the result of severe frostbite. The only treatment at that point was amputation.
Freemasons, they understand balance because they believe in duality, white and black, right? Where you see checkerboard floors, they understand the duality of the universe, the balance of the universe. Same thing with the yin and yang. They did a test on quantum entangled photons. Now what that is on a quantum level, what makes up the universe. They looked at these photons. It's literally the symbol of yin and yang. So it's literally the balance of the universe. And this is why I give reference to how the Freemasons work, because they understand symbolism, colors, logos, all these things they put in our movies and what we look for.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
And people are like, oh, no, that's bullshit. But then they look into it, they're like, oh, wait a minute, that's a coincidence, that's a coincidence. How many coincidences need to line up before it's not a coincidence?
There's no coincidence.
So they understand the mind, they understand the universe and how it works. I've talked to a Freemason. Even when you get initiated, they have something called a white ball to where you get accepted. Now, if you're out and you're not accepted, what do they give you?
Black ball.
A black ball. That's what the term comes from. You get blackballed out of the industry. You get blackballed out of whatever you're doing.
Hey, I'm thoroughly convinced that The Simpsons is not a coincidence. I mean, once or twice you can almost consider a coincidence, but The Simpsons just keeps bringing them back to back to back. And at this point, it's like you can watch The Simpsons to almost predict what's going to happen next. And now tell me if I'm lying.
For absolutely no reason at all, I want to show you guys what aired on the news 9 years ago. Yes, 9 years.
And now we're learning that scientists and researchers are looking at how to change the weather on purpose. That's right. Lasers now could one day manipulate rain and lightning. See, I mean, lasers? Really? To change the weather?
That's right. Well, as Mark Twain once famously said, everyone complains about the weather, but no one ever does anything about it. Well, instead of doing a...
Everyone complains, but no one does anything about it. But don't you worry, because they're doing something about it. Wild, right?
You know what? I think the majority of people, when they watch the news, they're likely to believe a lot of it isn't real. But more times than not, they'll drop little gems like that and you'll see it and you'll just not really grasp really what's going on. Because if that was 9 years ago, certainly nobody was thinking, oh, they're going to be able to change the weather with lasers.
I've been on Adderall for like a few years now, and when I first got it, I was like way overprescribed. So I was wired 24/7, and it honestly felt great, but I didn't realize that people could tell, and you could really like see it in my eyes first. And I know I already have like pretty big eyes, but I'm going to show you guys this clip of when I was in my company's like internship commercial, and it was just so bad.
And I've never reached people on that scale before, and I think getting a chance to do something like that was a pretty great experience.
Now, if you're telling me you didn't even get the slightest chuckle, I know you are capping. You know, the biggest liar in the room. Don't lie.
Every one of these Emmy Awards, Grammys, they need to compare all of that, all of the imagery, everything that you see, they need to compare it to biblical texts about the Baphomet and the devil. Because if you do that, you're going to see a lot of similarities. Why do we see our artists throwing this up? Come on, man, that's Baal, that's Moloch, that's their symbol, that's their symbol. These people are doing rituals on us through this media. The movie The Conjuring just came out. You know, they're giving people holy water before they go in.
Are you serious?
That's going on. Whoa. Hold on, even crazier. People always ask me about portals and what do I think about? I say, bro, if you want to find a portal, you go get a Ouija board. Ouija boards is a direct way to speak to demons. And they market it as a children's toy.
Hey, no lies detected. The Ouija board is definitely a demonic tool.
Why are there so many wars in 2025? Well, do you want my real answer or do you want my diplomatic answer? My real answer is the U.S. has a defense budget that is bigger than the next 8 largest countries combined. After 9/11, the U.S. entered into something like a permanent wartime economy, where if we didn't have a war to fight and to finance, we would actually go into recession. Now, we see ourselves as the world's peacekeepers. In many cases, we're not. We tend to be places where we're not wanted or welcome, and we end up forgetting to leave. There's an old joke inside the CIA about Iran. Like, why would Iran put its country right in the middle of all of our military bases? There you have it. Why are there so many wars? It's because the U.S. has an activist foreign policy, and sometimes we make friends on the wrong side of issues. Can the CIA make someone disappear without a trace? You bet they can, and they do all the time. In the immediate aftermath of the 9/11 attacks, the CIA created, for example, an archipelago of secret prisons, and they would just disappear people. We would capture people in Al-Qaeda safe houses, for example, let's say in Pakistan or Afghanistan, and we would ship them off to these secret prisons. And when I say secret prisons, I mean in many cases they were so secret that even the presidents and prime ministers of the countries where the prisons were based didn't know that there were secret CIA prisons in their countries. So the CIA can make people disappear in that respect. They can kill people and just bury them, in some crazy foreign land and nobody would ever know. But if you're a CIA officer, or better yet, let's say you're a KGB officer and you want to defect, the CIA will give you a completely new identity, more money than you can ever count, and you and your family can live happily ever after, under the name John Smith, and nobody would be the wiser. How does the USA track terrorist threats? They use something called the terrorist matrix. It's also called all-source intelligence. Believe it or not, members of terrorist groups actually give press interviews in which they telegraph what they're going to do in their next attack. That's one way, the media. Electronic surveillance. It could be intercepting cell phones, intercepting emails, intercepting encoded messages, even intercepting messages from game platforms. We have satellites that track these things. We have spies providing what's called HUMINT, short for human intelligence. So you use literally every source at your dispense and put this matrix together to try to disrupt that next attack.
And it's all happening right in our backyard, right under our noses.
Blurry footage is coming out of Germany right now showing an airport absolutely blanketed in snow and an aeroplane which looks like it got bloody frozen in the middle of taking off. Yesterday, Munich had the largest snow day in December since records began, and it seems that this plane may have tipped backwards due to the huge amount of snow falling on its tail end. In fact, freezing temperatures have caused absolute chaos across Europe this week. Hundreds of flights have been grounded, there's been significant highway disruptions, trains, buses, and trams have been cancelled. A state of emergency was declared in Bulgaria after thousands of towns and villages were left without electricity. The UK was issued with a number of snow and ice warnings, and a number of sporting events were cancelled after the temperatures dropped as low as -12. In Austria and Switzerland, officials were forced to sound the alarm for potential avalanches. 10 people died in a snowstorm that rocked Ukraine, leaving people trapped in thousands of stranded vehicles. 4 people were reported dead in Moldova, 2 of which were recovered from cars buried in snowdrifts. Temperatures are forecast to rise again next week, but of course, I'll keep you guys updated.
The Exorcist, people don't know The Exorcist was actually written by the CIA. It's a CIA script.
What? No.
William Peter Blatty, he did psyops in Vietnam for the CIA. And then
what is the psyop that they're pushing with that? Oh, they're like, look at these crazy exorcisms.
Well, the idea is to scare the shit out of people, to remind them that the devil's real and go back to church so that they don't turn to communism and atheism. For example, some of the work carried out by the Psychological Warfare Bureau, orchestrated by people like William Blatty and Tom Dooley, included staging Marian apparitions in Vietnam to support the anti-communist ideology. So extensive campaigns were carried out by the Catholic Relief Services and American psychological warfare teams to drive peasants south of the demilitarized zone by telling them, quote, "The Virgin Mary has departed from the north. Jesus and Mary want you to go south." I mean, that's literally what the CIA did in the Cold War.
That is incredible.
In the psyops.
Dude. I mean,
isn't that crazy?
I think when people say everything's fake and gay, they really don't understand how deep that statement really is.
And you know what? Candace Owens definitely let the world know already that the Pentagon has a propaganda department, an extension in the motion picture industry. This is where they're depicting a lot of this stuff. So for the CIA to be creating movies like that is not too far off.
We live in a fallen world. It is an evil world if you're going to use the terms good and evil, right? There are pockets, moments of good as people aspire to benefit and help other human beings. Moments. But we are predominantly fallen. We are predominantly evil, predominantly selfish, predominantly self-interested, predominantly abusive, predominantly manipulative. That is what we do. We manipulate our kids to get them to brush their teeth and turn off the TV. We say that we're doing it for a good reason, and we forget the fact that one day those kids that are manipulated into watching TV today grow up into adults who are manipulated into whatever the fuck else, right? And they end up on trial like Diddy. We have...
You wring out a rag filled with water in space, I'd still expect the water to go away from the rag. But no, there's no gravity. It doesn't go anywhere.
The funeral theory is fascinating to me because it basically explains that at the end of your life, on average, there are only 10 people at your funeral who cry. 10 people that you made a big enough impact on to elicit an emotional response. But here you are, day in and day out, stressing about if everybody likes you, people pleasing, trying to be perfect. But at the end of the day, at the end of your life, people won't remember you as perfect. They'll be remembering the way that you made them feel. The 10 people at the end will probably be the ones that were celebrating your authenticity and cheering you on for being the highest version of who you were and not the person that they just wanted you to be.
Hate to break the news to you, but scientists may have just shown that genetics dictate how smart you are. This new study in the International Cognitive Ability Journal just blew the doors off the old nature versus nurture debate. Researchers mapped thousands of tiny genetic mutations and tracked how well they predicted intelligence, cognitive ability, and education outcomes from childhood through adulthood. And here's the wild part. When they compare these scores between siblings, that means the same parents, the same school, and the same homes. These differences in their DNA predicted clear differences in their learning and overall achievements, meaning those tiny genetic differences weren't just noise, but they truly mattered. But it gets even deeper. The study highlighted that about half of those genetic influences worked through environmental pathways. This means your genetics don't just sit there passively, they actively shape your environment. For example, think about parents who naturally value learning based on their own genetics. They're more likely to fill the house up with books, pick schools that challenge their kids, and create an intellectually stimulating environment. Then there's what happens when a child presents with special talents early on. Teachers or mentors may notice and give them special praise or opportunities. And finally, as we grow, we tend to seek out things that naturally match our strengths, such as our choice of hobbies, friends, or career paths. Your genes and environment aren't separate forces fighting against each other. They're dancing together, amplifying each other over time, even within the same family. So instead of saying it's all genes or all environment, we need to see the big picture here.
The NASA twin study, we had an astronaut go to space for a whole year and had an identical twin stay on Earth. And we looked at every part of their bodies that we could to see what changed. Because it was the first time we'd been able to really understand what happens to the body in space. As soon as you get into space, there's thousands of changes. Many of these genes kind of like gears activating and changing and reconstructing how cells are responding to the radiation, the microgravity, the stressful environment. And the good news is that most of the changes actually do go back to normal within a few days or weeks of being back on Earth, but not all of them. Some of the ones that stayed on were actually the genes for bone formation, so we're still rebuilding the bones we could see, and DNA repair actually. We could see the repair process to get rid of the damage from the radiation takes not just a couple days, but can take weeks or even months to finish sort of the repair job of the body.
Did you know it takes approximately 400 repetitions to create a new synapse in the brain, which is a new habit, unless it is done through play, in which case it only takes between 10 and 20 repetitions.
So basically, you need to have as much fun as possible when you're doing something repetitiously.
I just heard of a study where prisoners can get out of jail if they give their memories to the doctors to give to other people. And I'm like, I'm never doing that.
No way.
Yes, I heard that. What we call cloning is actually a siphoning of consciousness into another physical being that replicates the one before it. So that's what they do with celebrities, and they steal a consciousness. Saddam Hussein, he had 5 decoys that looked just like him, so you didn't really know what he looked like.
Wow.
Science says that 85 to 90% of all disease, all disease. Science says this, not just spiritual woo-woo shit. I used to say this 30 years ago, but nobody believed me because science didn't say that yet. Science says it now. 85 to 90% of all disease is linked to stress. And where does stress happen first?
Remember, America invented pop culture itself, rock and roll, blues, jazz, hip hop, country and western. It was invented right here. The biggest stars in the world, Michael Jackson, all the rest of them came right from America. It's the music of the world, okay? So when you hear Elvis's song or Sinatra's song on the radio, we have to understand that everybody's getting paid. The record companies, radio stations, the executives, ad infinitum, ad nauseum, except Elvis never made a single penny from broadcasting his song. I turn on the radio because I want to hear Sinatra or Elvis, but everybody's getting paid. Music industry received this last year almost $14 billion with a B dollars. How much did the Elvis estate get? 0. Now this is an injustice that has to be cured. I spent a little alone time with the president, and I'm convinced this is going to pass. And my appearance at the Senate, at the behest of the Senate, and I appreciate the time, is to bring this injustice up to the front. This is a bipartisan appearance, both Republicans and Democrats, and it shouldn't be politicized because everybody agrees to the American way of life. If you work hard, you should get paid.
So let me ask you, Gene, because the radio broadcasters, they argue these new royalties will hurt their bottom line, potentially forcing programming cutbacks where they only play the most popular songs. What do you say to those radio broadcasters?
It's a capitalist economy. You should get paid for what you do. But, it bears noting that radio stations, and we're not demonizing them, we need each other, is they can use our name and likeness in billboards and everything else for contests for free. If you use my name and likeness without my permission, I take your firstborn. Radio has the leniency to do this, and by the way, charge advertisers enormous sums. So I'm not saying that artists should be getting all of the $14 billion that radio gets this year, but how about a little bit? How about the executives everywhere who get paid a very nice living, as well they should because they work hard for it. But what about the Elvis estate, the Frank Sinatra estate? These are the music superheroes of the world. You can go to Africa and hear Elvis, Michael Jackson, you ain't nothing but a hound. You hear that millions of times. How much did the Presley estate get every time the song was played? Zero. It's an injustice, and both Republicans and Democrats, I'm convinced, because I've got friends on both sides of the aisle. I'm not political. I vote on issues, not political parties. I'm sure they will agree, because if it was their child who was going to be the next generation star, you want your child to get paid for what they do.
And the crazy part about all that is artists today will hear all that and still be in a rush to sell their soul. Sign up for fame. That's really what you're doing, because you're not getting rich.
Interesting facts you won't believe, part 1. Dendrophilia is the sexual arousal from trees. The odds of being struck by lightning are 1 in 600,000. More people are allergic to cow's milk than any other food. Man is the only animal that cries.
This is somebody's tooth inside of their eye, helping them see better. That's right, you heard me right. They take their tooth, take the pulp of the tooth, and insert a plastic lens with a prescription in there, and insert it in their cheek. While it lives in the cheek, they can build blood vessels inside the pulp of that tooth, so when they take it out and implant it into the eye, it'll survive. Some research shows that it can last up to 50 years. It's crazy. If you want to see real cases of this is a video of someone that had this procedure done. She was blind and then had this procedure. She's walking around and seeing well with this lens inside of her eye that's in a tooth. Crazy. Have you ever heard of this?
Never heard of it, but definitely interesting as all get out.
Tell you how to know a dark entity.
Can a dark entity ever be converted to light? No. A gray entity can go dark or light. A dark entity stays a dark entity.
Yeah, like the NPC concept is that there are human beings that has potential to reconnect with their soul and to rebuild intuition. It's there. It's just that it's so like in a spiritual way, kind of calloused over. It's asleep. Like that's the whole concept in Gnosticism too, of like Sophia, what Sophia is, what wisdom is. Right? It's like Sophia kind of represents the sleeping soul that is meant to be reunited with the spirit and then create the Eros Gamos, which is, and in Hebrew or Kabbalah, it's known as the Shekinah, the divine presence of God. So you have these people that have no internal dialogue. It's like, well, then how are you even communicating with God?
It's because they're not communicating with God. If you've ever run into somebody that just looks dead in the eyes, that's how you know there's something going on that's just unnatural.
Probably heard that dopamine is the pleasure chemical, but that's not quite right. It's actually the chemical of anticipation and motivation. It's not the feeling of getting what you want, it's the drive that makes you pursue what you want. And it spikes highest when a reward is uncertain but possible. And this is why the question of, will they text back, creates a more powerful chemical rush than knowing that they always will. Your brain can mistake intensity for depth, the depths of a genuine connection. So the next time you feel that overwhelming pull, ask yourself, is this true connection, or is this my brain chasing a dopamine hit?
Interesting facts about left-handed people. Only 12% of the world are left-handed. Left-handed people are more likely to be alcoholics. Studies show left-handers are better at multitasking. Lefties live 9 years less than righties. Studies have shown that left-handers are more competitive.
This is incredible. This is why when you want to get rid of a bee's nest, you gotta do it at night. Watch this. Boom, instant sleep mode. Bees do not fly at night. I didn't know that.
Welcome to 2025, where now country concerts are demonic. This is the Zac Brown Band. I've never heard of them, but they recently just played at the Sphere. Now, I don't know if this is some type of initiation to go mainstream or even to play at the Sphere, but people said they literally felt like they were getting dragged through the gates of hell. This concert starts off with a little boy inside of a red door in his bed. I'm not sure who this is supposed to resemble, maybe the lead singer or something. After this, they take you through a jungle or woods with portals everywhere. And then after that, you see the boy in front of the red door, but now it's on fire. And this literally looks like the door to hell, because after this, it starts to get really dark. You see this really big skeleton, and there's flames around him in this big kingdom, and he's wearing this crown. And then eventually you're gonna see that the lead singer is wearing that same crown, and then things start getting a little crazy. Just notice at the very end, you start to see the fallen angel. I'm not sure if this is supposed to represent Lucifer himself, but there's a lot of symbolism here, and you can watch it back and see what you can pick out. But I've never seen a country concert be this demonic in my entire life.
Now, I've never seen a country artist take it that far either, but a lot of artists are aware that the Illuminati and selling your soul is a hot topic. Another form of selling your soul is doing anything for clout. Not to say that there's nothing else going on in the background, but they know when they do shows like that, people are going to post about it and have conversations about it. And once your name starts to ring and you're getting that kind of attention, then your music gets played. And a lot of people believe that's another form of selling your soul as well. Just another form of shock value.
We met a dude his name was Ball. His name was B-A-A-L. Oh. That's what the man's name. When we met the man, people ask me have I ever met the devil. I'm not going to say I met the devil, but we met somebody. We met one of them. And he made me real uncomfortable, bro.
Was he in human form?
He was a white dude with blonde hair. He had a gray suit, and I always wear a cross. He stared at my cross and was frowning at me, and he made me so uncomfortable. I felt like I was a sheep next to an alligator. And
you think that's what protected you?
I know for a fact, bro. I know for a fact, because he made a comment. He says, "What are you doing wearing that in here?" I'm looking at this dude like, bro, I'm lethal with these hands and feet, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not. But with this person, I said, man, I don't know. Like,
you're like, this is a different.
This
level.
is something different, and he made me real uncomfortable, bro. I never felt fear like that. It was not even fear. It was like, yo, this is a different type of predator.
He said, I'm lethal with these hands and feet. Whole time, he's feeling like a sheep standing next to an alligator. And Big Homie CC is not a small guy, so that's saying a lot.
After you die, they put a plug up your exit only to make sure that you're not leaking out fluid during the embalming and the ceremony. Also, if you get buried, unless you are Jewish, there's a very real possibility that your casket will never touch dirt. If you're cremated, a lot of people get ashes turned into jewelry. When most people are buried, their head is either facing north or facing west, and their feet are either facing south or facing east. Although these are commonly called headstones, they are not actually named headstones, they are burial monuments. Different cultures have different burial customs, such as monks prefer to be buried on Mondays. They'll be booked out 3 or 4 months in advance just to make sure they get it on Monday. Islamic burials are put in a bottomless burial vault, and they are laid on their side so they are directly facing east. Jewish burials have dirt thrown inside of the burial vault on top of the casket before it is closed. Monuments like these cost way more than you would like to think. In most places, your gravedigger is not actually the one that puts your body in the ground. They just dig the hole and they fill it back in. Some funeral directors only do the actual funeral, while others do the embalming, the preparation, and the funeral. A lot of places do not require a certain type of container when you're cremated. So when you are buried after cremation, I've seen people in basketballs, in footballs, in toolboxes, in tackle boxes, kind of whatever they want. You guys want to know more about funerals, cemeteries, anything like that? Go ahead, leave questions or comments right there and I'll try and get to them.
Albert Einstein, when he was 4 years old, his father gave him a birthday gift of a compass. And he was just mesmerized by this compass. The idea that there are invisible forces out there in the cosmos moving this needle. And he's obsessed with the idea of invisible forces. Steve Jobs, when he was like 7 or 8 or maybe younger, and his father, they passed by a store with technological devices in the window. And he was just hypnotized by the design of those devices and the glass tubes and everything. So he wanted to go in that direction. Tiger Woods saw his father hitting golf balls in the garage, and he was just like screaming with joy. He had to do that. You know, I could give you a million different examples of this. But what happens to you is you're 7, now you're getting older, and you're starting to not hear that voice anymore. You're hearing the voice of your teachers telling you, you're not good at this field. You need to get better at math. You shouldn't be interested in these sports or anything. You should be going this way. Your parents are starting to tell you this is the career they want for you, or the direction they want you to go in, right? You start hearing that more than your own voice. And as you get older, it gets worse and worse and worse. So all of these noise enters your brain and you can't hear that anymore. You don't know who you are. And so you go to college, you kind of maybe choose a major that seems practical that your parents want you to go into. Maybe you kind of wander around, you're not sure. And then you enter the work world without that inner radar that I'm talking about. And brother, you're lost, right? Where should I go? Well, I need to make money. And so you make a choice based on the need to make a lot of money. Not everyone, but some people do that. And I understand that need. We all need to make a living, but that can set you off on a very bad path because you're not connected emotionally. The thing is, when you figure out that primal inclination, that grain that's inside of you, then you have the energy to be disciplined, to go through boring tasks, to learn. You learn at a faster rate because you're emotionally engaged. When you're emotionally engaged in a subject, the brain learns 2x, 3x, 4x as fast as when you're not.
And you know what my theory is that the black sheep of the family is generally the one that is just listening to himself and isn't listening to anybody else. So that what he's saying kind of coincides with that.
You come to the devil, you know you want to sell your soul for some you know you don't need to have right now. Or if you really, really, really wanted that kidney, or you really, really, really wanted to go over here to what is it, Dubai or what? You really wanted a new life. You went through certain channels to get that life.
Yeah.
You knew what the consequences was.
Do people though?
Yes, they do. That's his whole game. It's to make sure you know what you're gonna do. Right now is the time for righteousness, bro. Some people really, really play the game of, okay, well, I'm gonna look at this face and I'm gonna ask all these questions, but at the same time, I really don't even have to ask all these questions. I need to ask other questions. You see what I'm saying? We can't go back. We can only go forward after everything that we've already done. Every time you wake up, you choose to be good or you choose to be bad. That's me too. We all in this room have a choice to wake up and be good or be fucked up. I try my best to not be fucked up based off of the fact that I know I have boundaries. Regardless of what has happened to me, regardless of what has been done to me, I have to be a child of God. That's why I'm not allowed in certain rooms. That's why I'm not allowed to touch people. I'm not allowed to hug people. I'm not allowed to kiss people. I'm not allowed to have sex. I'm not allowed to see my family. I'm not allowed, bro.
Who's not allowing you?
I'm not allowed. This is not, don't go there. I'm not allowed to. I'm not allowed to. They're not ready. No, spiritually, they're not ready to deal with me. I have to seclude myself. Do you have the power to seclude yourself?
So you're moving yourself away from
Do you have the power to seclude yourself?
So you're saying you willingly moved your way.
I have to make sure that my peace is protected, my brother. There's everyone watching me every single moment when I think they're not.
I'm a psychologist who studies dark personalities. And here's the #1 rule I tell my students about spotting dark personality traits. A dark personality is characterized by being callous and manipulative. So if they encounter one lie, callous act, or selfish move, that isn't a dark personality. Dark personalities act this way consistently across time and context. So if you want to know if someone is psychopathic, narcissistic, or Machiavellian, act like a scientist and keep gathering data. It's the simplest way to know what you're dealing with. Look for patterns, not someone's worst day.
If someone touches the B-2 bomber with their bare hands, it can ground the aircraft for weeks. You see, the B2's coating isn't regular paint. It's made up from 225 different materials designed to absorb radar energy instead of reflecting it. But when skin oils contaminate the surface, they mess with how the coating absorbs radar waves. The contaminated areas start reflecting radar back instead of absorbing it, which defeats the entire point of a stealth bomber. The section has to be completely stripped and recoated. This can take up to 80 hours of work in a special hangar. With only 19 operational B2s in the inventory, losing even one for repairs is a big deal. That's why maintenance crews always wear specialized gloves.
You guys believe in ghosts? I want everybody to know, if you're listening, our brains have not physically changed in 200,000 years. No new wrinkles or anything. There's nothing really different about our brain. And we tend to think, we want to tell ourselves that our brain is a truth-seeking mechanism, it's wired to seek the truth. It is the opposite of that. Our brain's job is to keep us alive and search for things that we already think are true. So your brain is basically a defense attorney, and their job is to prove you right all the time. And once we understand that, I'm going to start looking at other things. So I'm either A, well-informed, or B, I'm not going to consume one-sided, narrative-based media.
Morbid Facts, Part 831. Susan King spent 6.5 years in prison for a murder she couldn't possibly have committed. She had one leg, weighed under 100 pounds, and didn't even own a car. Yet police claimed she beat, shot, and dragged a man before tossing his body off a bridge 40 miles away. The lead detective built the entire case on lies, fake ballistics, drag marks that were actually water damage, and blood evidence that never matched the victim. And investigators later admitted they had doubts about her guilt before it even went to trial. But terrified of facing life in prison or the death penalty, Susan took a plea deal and went to prison for murdering a man she never even laid her hands on. Years later, a different man confessed in detail to the murder, even describing facts never released to the public, and even claimed the same detective threatened him to stay quiet. Only then was Susan exonerated, and the state eventually paid her $750,000. The detective who framed her never faced charges. He simply retired while under investigation for unrelated sexual misconduct.
Nah, B. You know what? I'd rather go to jail knowing I'm innocent than cop a plea to some kind of coerced lie. That's pretty crazy. That's way too crazy. Because if that man wouldn't have come forward, she'd still be sitting in jail.
A group of scientists recreated a star by taking a vat of water, putting an air bubble in the center of it, and then passing a sound wave through it. This caused the air bubble to collapse upon itself, creating heat and light. Did you notice how they recreated a star in a vat of water, not in an empty vacuum? So all of the ancient cultures around the world understood that what was above us was some sort of liquid substance. Some people have even called it the ether, which is the fifth element that was taken out of the four elements that we have now. There's 5. Earth, water, air, fire, and ether. Ether is the substance, the spirit that holds everything together. It is the unmanifest giving power to the manifest. So when you look up at the sky, what you're seeing is angles of light, sacred geometry. That's what the angels are. When they're describing angels in the Bible, pay attention to how it's describing it. The stars are not millions of miles away, but entertainment only.
I have a question. How many people have ever lived? And how many of those are alive right now? So we made a graph. It's wild. So you start here, around when we think our species started to appear, based on archaeological remains. And during this whole part, scientists think there are as many people born per hour today as in all of humanity back then. And for the next 190,000 years, our population barely budged. But then, these geniuses started farming. More food, but also more disease. And still fewer people alive than in Australia today. But growing all of a sudden until in the Middle Ages, whoop, that's the Black Death. The Black Death killed 1 out of every 3 humans alive at the time. Okay, scientific revolution. Now things really start to get moving. Now we're passing 1 billion humans. It had taken all of human history to reach that point. But with modern medicine and new discoveries and treatments, watch this. So if you added up all the people who have ever lived, you'd reach a rough estimate of 117 billion people. And since there are 8.2 billion people alive right now, that means that 7% of all the people who have ever lived are alive today. That's you. So if you think there should be more optimistic science and tech stories, follow along.
Target just had to admit that your personal data is deciding how much you pay for groceries. A new law in New York forces retailers to disclose if an algorithm uses your personal data to set prices. It's called algorithmic pricing. Here's how it works. The store tracks your location, your browser history, and your spending habits to guess exactly how much you're willing to pay. In one example, a carton of eggs cost $1.99 in one neighborhood, but jumped to $2.29 in another. Same eggs, same website, different data. New York is currently the only state forcing them to admit this, which means in the other 49 states, you're likely paying a personal data tax on your coffee, and they don't even have to tell you.
Just remember, there are people out there that will avoid you because you tell the truth, and they just want to live in a lie.
Hey, that's a fact. I know some people like that.
Police are testing body cameras that scan your face for warrants just for walking past them. Axon, the company that makes tasers, is running the first test in the world right now in Edmonton, Canada. Here's how it works. A cop walks past you, the body camera scans your face, it checks you against a database of people with warrants or safety flags. You don't have to do anything, you just have to exist near a police officer. The Electronic Frontier Foundation says this destroys privacy for anyone who happens to walk past a cop. Axon paused this technology in 2019 because their own ethics board said it was too dangerous. Now they're testing it anyway. Today it's Canada, but Axon is the biggest supplier for body cameras for police departments in America.
When you join the CIA, the first thing they teach you is to stop leaning. Apparently, Americans are the only ones around the world that lean, and it's an easy tell in the spy world if someone is an American, so they teach you not to do it.
And just like that, the mysterious fog is back. Now, it's been reported that a 400-mile-long radiation fog blankets 13 million Americans in California. And if you guys remember, the same time last year where we had this mysterious fog covering over 30 states where there's reports of residue, weird smells, well, this time there's even more dots connect. Now they're calling it radiation fog due to when the ground cools off quickly after sunset, radiating all the heat back into the air after the fall and winter. Here's why they're calling it dangerous. They're saying the toxic particles from factories and car exhaust get trapped in the fog, which causes various respiratory problems. Basically, they're saying this fog doesn't move, it just stays on top, like spraying aerosol in a bowl and putting a top on it. But are we buying any of this? Because for one, that doesn't sound right. Two, here's a US patent for processing apparatus for the production of intense artificial clouds, fogs, and mist. And here's what that apparatus looks like for good measure. Coincidence? Let's keep going. Now, speaking of weather and radiation, just last week, they grounded over 6,000 Airbuses due to solar radiation impacting their flight systems. There's even reports of a JetBlue flight that lost altitude, injuring over a dozen people because of this. Not to mention, Julian Assange actually warned us about this back in 2018.
Intelligent evil dust scattered everywhere like confetti in everything.
Now, on one hand, they could be manipulating the weather to the point of no return where our atmosphere is completely cooked, resulting in things like this. There's a nationwide Arctic blast set to hit possibly new record lows across 15 states. Or it could be one big psyop that we're falling for again because the Illuminati card game that predicted everything in the last 30 years strikes again. I mean, you have the International Weather Organization card, you have the weather satellite card that reads, real weather satellites don't just report the weather, they change it. You can't make this up. Make sure you guys hit up my YouTube, The Maverick Approach, but what do you guys think is going on? Let me know below.
I went into my marriage virgin, in the sense that I had slept with only one person before in my life, the woman that I then married. Right after I was engaged, my wife-to-be had an affair and told me about it just a short time before the wedding. That, in combination with the Puritan background, had a dramatic impact on me. And I am absolutely certain that a part of what lay behind the establishment of Playboy was a throwing off the chains of personal hurt and indignity, and simultaneous with that, a quest for some better way.
On one hand, at least she told him, because a lot of people take that kind of dirt to the grave. On the other hand, it turned him into a beast, because Playboy turned out to be one of the biggest magazines And now we kind of get to see who got the last laugh.
If I told you we were all born with a multidimensional compass, which allows us to measure what's truly important in life, as the shaman Don Juan noted in Carlos Castaneda's work, quote, look at every path closely and deliberately. Try it as many times as you think necessary. Then ask yourself alone one question. Does this path have a heart? If it does, the path is good. If it doesn't, it is of no use. The heart is a springboard to higher levels of consciousness, and most people underestimate how powerful it can be. Your eyes are how your physical body sees, while the heart is how your soul sees. If you want to truly be happy in life, you must learn how to stay attentive to the sense organ of the soul. Learning to listen to your heart also usually requires turning off the logical, rational part of your brain, as the heart does not work causally and logically. It is beyond that. This work also usually requires a good amount of deprogramming in order to sort out which of your, quote, desires are actually due to societal programming versus what actually comes from deep within your soul. And the vast majority of people don't do this work, so they stay continuously disconnected and unfulfilled. Also, the energetic blockages holding us back in life are oftentimes due to an inability to forgive not only others, but also ourselves, a problem which can usually be ameliorated by reconnecting to the heart and choosing to act from a place of love.
Well, you guys, hey, that's another one in the books, man. I appreciate you guys for tapping in yet again and watching another one with me. You already know what to do. Smash that like button and subscribe button, and I definitely will catch you on the next one.